Hello and welcome to another Warhammer the Old World video. Today I'm going to be painting horse archers. I debated whether or not I should even do this video because I've already done archers and I've already done horsemen. So I wasn't going to do it, but in the end I decided I'm painting them for myself, so I may as well video it. It might be of use to somebody. I primed the models the usual way I prime the undead, which is a red spray primer followed by a white zenithal, heavy zenithal, actually much heavier than zenithal coating over the top. I then, to my horror, noticed massive mold lines, especially on the backs of the horse's legs. So the knife had to come out and I had to scrape the mold lines off. Hence why I'm coming in now with some white paint to touch up where I had to scrape the paint off. A kindly viewer pointed out to me that I had painted models and left mold lines on with the first batch of horsemen that I'd done, and right enough I did, and they really weren't that offensive to me the first time round, but now they are. The first colour up is going to be Pallid Bone from the Army Painter Speedpaints range. This is going to just basically be sloshed over the entire model, trying to miss out the bows and other areas which I want to be a different colour. I'm not going to pay too much attention. If I hit an area, I hit it. It'll be easily repaired with the white paint later in the process. Just for your information, these painting sections are sped up 8 times normal speed, so that gives you an idea of just how long it's going to take to paint 6 horse archers for the undead. Of course, you're going to have to allow some drying time between certain coats. You'll get away with going straight on to certain other colours. You won't cause any damage, but you do have to let this base coat dry a little bit before you continue with the next colour. But that's only really because I'm putting it on in a heavy coat. You can use a much lighter coat if you want. You could also thin this paint down with medium, which would give you a lighter overall effect. So I'm now coming back in with the game colour dead white paint, and I'm just going to touch up areas that I've hit with the Pallid Bone that I didn't want to hit. This isn't a big deal, it's not a big job, it's a little bit time consuming, but I do recommend that you do it because you want the colours that you're going to be putting over the top of the white to be vibrant and to be the same. Because this paint is so thin that we're using, it can be kind of translucent. And if there are dark patches below the initial base coat, you will get shadow effects. You will see those darker patches below the colour. So I try not to make that as visible by giving it a kind of solid white coat. I hope that makes sense. For anybody new to my videos, you'll see that I'm using old paint pots with a bit of blue tack on top. You can use double-sided tape, and that's basically just to hold each individual model, make it easier to hold and turn and paint and get at areas. I suggest you would do that yourself, or you can go and buy the expensive paint handles from companies like Games Workshop, and I'm sure other companies make them as well. If you insist on only painting one model at a time, those wee official painting handles can be very handy, but no, I don't like painting one model at a time if I can help it. I'll make an exception for characters, but that's where I'll stop. It's all about getting an army finished and on the tabletop for me, personally. Or if not finished, at least to a playable level. The next colour up is going to be Caribbean Blue, and again it's an Army Painter Speed Paint. and it's going to be used on parts of the quiver and on the strapping of the quiver that goes across the chest, or the rib cage in this case, of the skeletons. Make sure you're using a fine detail brush here with a good point on it, because we don't want to hit the rib cage if we can help it. It's not a big deal, we can go back in again with our white paint and then our Pallid Bone, but we'll want to try and avoid having to do that if we can. The whole aim of this game is to get these things done quickly, and not have to continuously go back over repairing mistakes. We will make mistakes, that's inevitable, but we'll want to make as few as we can. At least that's my philosophy. The next colour up is going to be Slaughter Red, and I've used this for bows on the archers, and I quite like it. It's a very deep, almost blood red, and I suppose the clue's in the name, Slaughter. There you go. I'm stating the obvious. But anyway, it's a nice colour, and it goes over the top of white really well. I wouldn't try and put it over the top of any other base colour, but that's just me personally. Feel free to experiment with these colours over different base coats if you want. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder after all. We all have different likes and dislikes, so do what you like. While we're on the subject of doing what you like, just remember, nobody gives a damn what your models look like, only you. No one really cares. People just want to see a painted army in front of them when they're playing a game. They don't care that it's not, golden demon standard. The only person that cares about how well your army is painted is you. Don't forget that. Yes, this is a bit of a rant. I do apologise for that, but I'm just trying to get the point across. You're painting these miniatures for your own personal pleasure, not for anybody else. Back to painting. You'll see I've got the white paint out again, and I'm just really touching up some areas. White paint is probably my most used colour, and that's simply because I like to paint over a white undercoat, so anytime I make a mistake I'm always reaching for my white paint. And I would suggest you avoid the Citadel white paints, they're rubbish, absolute chalk in a pot. Buy Vallejo, buy Army Painter, buy Too Thin Coats, buy anything else. Next colour up is going to be Hoplite Gold, and I'm going to use it for the ends of the bows, the little metal parts. I'm also going to paint part of the quiver with the gold and the headbands around some of the skeletons. Again, this is a super easy job, just take your time. Use a nice fine detailed pointed brush. If the hairs are all splaying because it's been well used, change your brush. Otherwise you're just going to make more mistakes, it's going to take you more time than what you're saving from using speed paints. The next colour up is going to be Satchel Brown, and I'm going to use it just for a couple of wee parts of the quiver and for the hand grip on the bows. I'm making sure not to hit the quills on the arrows. I want those to be a different colour, or a different shade anyway. Now I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade from Citadel, and this is a wash, and I'm going to use it to wash the quills. It's really just to try and give them some definition, let you see that there are feathers there. And now I'm on to basing, and I'm going to use my AK Interactive beach sand. They do a whole load of different types of this basing material, but I find putting it on the bases with an old paintbrush and then sprinkling some sand over the top gives quite a good desert effect. Obviously I'm going to put a wash over the top of that and then dry brush, but you get the idea anyway. You'll also notice that I'm clipping the parts of the sprue off the hooves. I like to keep them on the horses just to add stability while they're being painted, and then I'll clip them off as I'm basing them. This AK Interactive material paints on really easily, and you can add an undulating effect on the bases very easily. It holds its shape somehow. I don't know what magic potion they've used to mix this up, but this stuff holds its shape remarkably well. You would think it would just pull and go flat, but it doesn't. It's really good stuff, but you're paying for the privilege. You could mix your own up with some sand and some cheap craft paint, but I'm choosing to use this because I have it. Now I'm going to use Aggaros Dunes. Again, it's a Citadel colour. This is a contrast, and I'm going to very heavily dilute it. Almost 3 parts water to 1 part paint. Even 4 parts water to 1 part paint would be fine. And it's just going to be a very light wash over the top of the sand on the bases. Once that wash is dry, I'm going to use some Screaming Skull, which again is a Citadel colour, and I'm going to dry brush it onto the bases. Kinda heavy dry brush, and it doesn't really matter if you hit the horse's legs because they're dead, and this is bone colour. Now I'm going to use some PVA glue and the Army Painter Tufts just to add some effects to the bases. Gives them a little 3D effect. I think it looks really well. For all the cost, these are not expensive. I highly recommend you get a couple of packs. I'm sure there's other companies that make them, but these are the easiest ones to obtain for me, so that's why I use them. You can make your own, and I have made my own, but it's not really worth the effort. These are not expensive, so unless you're on a really tight budget, I would just buy some Army Painter Tufts. Whichever ones you like. I happen to be using Deadlands and Highlands for these models. You could get away with just using one type. I'm just trying to split the models up a little bit, make them slightly different colour, add a little more colour, rather than just the one. And now I'm just going to edge the bases, and I'm going to use a Coat d'Arms Tan Earth. I've put a model colour Tan Earth down in the bottom left hand corner. Use whichever colour you like to use for edging your bases. A lot of people like to use a black. A lot of people like to use Goblin Green, which would be a traditional colour. I would have used Snakebite Leather for these guys, but Snakebite Leather is now a contrast paint. So use whichever colour you like. Your entire army is going to have to be the same colour though, remember that. And that's it. Model's finished. Finished to a good enough standard for me anyway. I could come back in here at a later date and with the dry brush and pick out the bone more, but you know what? I think they look fine. Plus I have another bunch of horsemen ordered, so I'm waiting on them arriving. Because although they're not the best in the rules, I just like them. I like skeleton horsemen, I think they look cool. And to me, the way an army looks is just as important as how it plays. Again, this is just personal. I'd like to thank you for watching this video and putting up with my rambling and my ranting. I don't mean to offend anybody, but we all have opinions, don't we? Anyhow, thank you for watching this video. If you haven't clicked subscribe, please do so. There will be more Tomb Kings and Old World content coming up. I'm already thinking about a second army. Haven't fully decided yet. It only partially depends on availability of models. I'm more interested in doing an army that I really want to do. So I don't mind trawling eBay or obtaining second-hand models. It's not a big deal. But I still have a fair amount of undead stuff to do before I'm satisfied with the Tomb Kings. Some of which I won't video because it would just be repeating videos and I'm not going to do that on you. Rambling again guys, sorry. Thank you for watching.